Episode 1, A Night of Crisis. Outside the window, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled loudly. The sky seemed angry and solemn at the same time, as the raindrops lashed with the wind. In the dark room, the breathing of a man and the soft moans of a woman intertwined. Violet Kingston's mind was busy, and she couldn't tell what was happening. The only thing she could sense was pain. She felt like she was being bitten by a ferocious shark and forcefully pulled into the abyss of the sea. She instinctively wanted to resist the man who was inflicting pain on her, but the hand she stretched out was weak and powerless, making the whole scene look more like she was welcoming him. She had never felt this weak before. "Hurts," Violet moaned softly. "Is it your first time?" The man spoke in a low voice. His voice was cold as he continued. "Be a good girl. It won't hurt too much later." Soon everything faded as the man continued to make love to her. The next day, when Violet woke up, it was still dark. In her muddle-headed state, she felt a strong arm on her waist. In an instant, the embarrassing memories from last night flashed in her mind. Violet's face instantly became pale, and her heart was filled with panic and despair. She only remembered that last night, when she came to the clubhouse to fetch for Chloe Kingston, her sister, to take her home, she drank what someone gave her and started to feel dizzy instantly. She remembered how someone had handed her a drink. Since she had been very thirsty, she quickly gulped it down. The consequences were before her now. She had kept her virginity for 20 years, but it was taken away by a stranger in a matter of one night. Feeling his presence beside her, she turned her head to look at her side. She could not see his face clearly since the man had his back to her. She could only see his bare back. He seemed to be really young. Violet suddenly felt the urge to cry out, but did not dare to. She wanted to scream, to lash out. She wished she could go back in time, but it was too late now. She slowly got up from the bed, afraid of waking the man up. She was scared as she had ever been before. She quickly picked up her clothes from the front of the bed and put them on. She had never dressed this quickly before. She tiptoed to the corner of the room where the door was and reached out to open it slightly. She was too flustered to think properly. She did not even dare to turn on the light to see what the man who had been with her for the entire night might look like. She hurriedly pushed open the door and rushed out. She didn't want the creaking door to wake the man up. As she left the room, she wanted to run home as fast as she could. The cold rain poured over her body, but she couldn't feel it. She was completely numb. She ran as she cried, and her tears mixed with the rain. When she ran back to the villa, it was dawn, and the sky had just lit up. However, the mansion of the Kingston family was brightly lit. It had never been like this before. Violet felt strange and thought, what happened here? She stood at the door and did not dare go in, knowing that she was in a sorry state at that time. Her clothes were a mess, and her tear-stained face looked terrible. Her grandpa would be very worried if he saw her. How should she tell her grandpa about this? She was scared, but she finally mustered the courage and headed towards the main door. While she was thinking about what to do with this situation, George, the butler, pushed the door open and was shocked at the sight in front of him. "Miss Violet, what happened to you? Are you okay?" he exclaimed. She stared back at him with a blank look on her face. When George reached towards her, she wanted to dodge him, but was pulled back. But before George could complete his sentence, his voice trembled and tears flowed down. Violet was confused. She had a bad feeling about this, so she asked in a slightly quivering voice, "George, what's wrong?" George gave her a very straight-faced look. "Mr. Kingston is dead," he said as his voice broke. "What?" Violet uttered in complete shock. Her legs instantly felt so weak that she stumbled and almost fell. Her mind was blank, and she mumbled in disbelief. How could it be? How could Grandpa leave us like this? Kenneth Kingston hadn't been doing well for over 6 months now. He had undergone cardiovascular resuscitation surgery some time ago. The doctor said that he would be all right after passing the critical period. He had already passed that stage and had been back to his healthy state for some time now. It seemed like he would easily live for another 8 to 10 years. But why did he suddenly die then? What happened to him? George looked at Violet's lifeless appearance and could not bear to see her like this. He said sadly while patting her back gently, "Miss Violet, people can't come back to life after they die. Please, don't be sad." "No, Grandpa, don't leave me." Violet pushed George's hand away, threw away her wet and soggy shoes because of the rain, and ran upstairs with all her might. When she got there, she saw that the corridor on the 3rd floor was crowded with people. The girls in the crowd were the first to notice her. Seeing the favorite granddaughter of the house, they made way for her to come forth, their eyes filled with sympathy. Violet walked step by step toward Grandpa's room. Her pruny feet were already hurt and almost bleeding, yet she did not feel any pain. Her self-consciousness felt like it was detached from her body. Every step she took felt lifeless, and her entire body was light. Chloe was the first to notice her and was a bit surprised upon seeing her. She walked over and stopped in front of her. "Violet, so you still have the nerve to come back home? Do you know that Grandpa's last words were asking where you were? Where the hell did you go last night?" she exclaimed in a rather loud tone. Violet's heart squeezed in pain hearing this. She only felt the bloody smell rushing to her throat before she swallowed back the urge to vomit right there. She looked at Chloe blankly and mumbled in a weak voice, "You asked me to come to the clubhouse to pick you up." "I did not. Don't blame me. I did not go out for a second today. Because Grandpa's condition was really bad today. I wanted to take care of him staying here." Violet knew that Chloe was lying, but she wasn't in the mood to argue with her. Neither did she have the mental capacity to argue at this time. She just wanted to take a good look at her grandfather. She brushed away Chloe's hand, which was pointing at her face, and walked around her to stand at the head of her grandfather's bed. He was covered in white cloth, but his face was not completely covered. He laid, motionless, on the bed as if he had fallen asleep in peace, like he did every night. However, she realized he had fallen asleep forever this time. He could no longer love her and tenderly call her Volley as he always did. He could no longer protect her or scold her lovingly. "Grandpa, I'm back." Violet's eyes were filled with tears. She knelt down in front of her grandfather's bed with a plop. The brutal sound of bone hitting the ground rang out through the hall. Charles Kingston and Miranda Kingston sat side by side at the head of the bed as gloom took over. When they saw Violet had returned perfectly fine, the two of them quickly looked at each other. There were different degrees of shock and panic in their eyes. Tonight, they had arranged for people to ensure that Violet wouldn't get home. Her arrival shocked them. When Charles came back to his senses, he got up from the bed and waved his walking stick towards Violet, shouting maliciously, "Damn you! How dare you come back home?" "Uncle." Violet did not have the strength to dodge the walking stick in time. She gritted her teeth while getting hit by the hard stick and enduring the pain. She felt like her ribs were about to break. Her uncle was really ruthless. She struggled as she tried to cover her aching ribs. Chloe, looking at her maliciously, noticed that the 2 buttons on her shirt were missing. As she looked closely, she could also see the scratches on her skin. Her eyes widened and her mind started racing. The man they had arranged had clearly said that his plan did not succeed and that she had run away. However, looking at the situation now, it seemed like Violet had sex with someone and then quickly ran home. Her eyes immediately shone with excitement as she walked over and abruptly pulled Violet's collar open. Amidst the situation at home, this was the last thing that Violet had expected. She didn't ever think that her shirt would suddenly be pulled open. The scratches on her neck and collarbone could clearly be seen. The marks were dark red and purple. It was pretty evident that they were hickeys. The Kingston family was conservative and premarital sex was frowned upon. Looking at Violet in that state, everyone in the room was silently shocked. "Violet, what happened to your neck?" Chloe pretended to scream in fear and immediately covered her mouth in shock afterward. She obviously knew what these marks meant, but she wanted everyone to see them and think that Violet was a whore who liked sleeping around with different men. Immediately, as she expected, there was a series of surprising gasps in the room. Everyone started looking at her in utter disgust. Then they all became very hostile toward her and evidently showed contempt. Mr. Kingston was on his deathbed, succumbing to his illness while his granddaughter was sleeping around with other men? She didn't even come to see him one last time. How shockingly disgusting is that? She didn't deserve his love at all, murmured the people present in the room. When everyone started pointing fingers at her, Violet came back to her senses and pulled her clothes over her neck in panic. She knew that Chloe had always disliked her and wanted to compete with her over everything, but she did not understand why she was this cruel and why she would humiliate her to this extent. Violet glared at Chloe in hatred and immediately felt her heart pounding in rage. Episode 2. Disappointment. Violet clenched her fists and questioned, "Chloe, isn't all of this your fault? And you still have the nerve to pretend to be innocent here?" However, before she could finish her words, Miranda raced towards Violet and slapped her ferociously. "What does your disgraceful behavior have to do with Chloe? How do you even have the nerve to behave this way?" Violet fell to the ground with a thud. She was shocked. She could feel her ears ringing to the sudden force on her cheek, covering half her face that had been slapped violently. She could taste the metallic smell of blood at the corner of her mouth. Miranda had always been this mean and evil, but today it had all gone to another level. Earlier, she had pretended to be concerned, but now, Chloe proudly smirked and walked over to Violet. "Violet, they are doing this for your own good. You should just admit your mistake honestly," she exclaimed. She was trying to show concern, but her pretentious behavior was visible. The look at her face evidently showed how happy she was. This is what she wanted. She never let go of any instance to look down upon Violet. Violet stared at Miranda, Chloe, and then her uncle, who seemed to enjoy the entire show. She suddenly realized that Miranda and Chloe must have known all about what happened and had deliberately planned all of this to harm her. She knew they were evil at heart and could go to any extent to harm her. She sneered bitterly in her heart, but she didn't show her emotions. With her grandfather's passing, she knew she had lost all the support that she had. It had only been a few moments since he passed away, and they had already begun to make her life so miserable. How could she admit her mistakes when she hadn't done anything wrong? That too, with such a disgraceful thing in question. Chloe's hypocritical appearance made Violet feel disgusted, and she immediately pushed her hand away. Violet did not even use force, but Chloe took a few steps back as if she was being pushed back fiercely. "Violet Kingston!" An enraged shout sounded through the hall. Lionel rushed in from outside the door and caught Chloe in time. Lionel was Violet's boyfriend. They had been dating for quite some time now, but secretly, Chloe had the hots for him. She wanted him more than anything, and this was the best chance that she had. He held her tightly in his arms as if he was afraid that she would get hurt. His dark eyes emitted a harsh coldness as he looked at her with disappointment. "You disappoint me too much." Seeing him, Violet panicked and was about to hurriedly get up from the ground, trying to explain. "Lionel, it's really not what you think. Let me explain. Wait." Lionel immediately looked away in disgust and ignored her. He looked down and asked Chloe with concern, "Are you okay?" Chloe laid in Lionel's arms, pretending to break down. She teared up and looked sad and pitiful. "I did not do anything to let Violet down. How could she blame me like this? Was it because I didn't do well enough? If she doesn't want to see me, I'll just leave." Chloe was pretending to be innocent, taking full advantage of the situation. She knew that this was the right time for her to make Lionel develop feelings for her. This was the exact image that she wanted Lionel to have of Violet. How could she let go of this chance? After saying that, Chloe broke free from Lionel's arms and ran out, sobbing heavily. "Lionel, it's not like that at all. Don't listen to her nonsense," Violet shouted. She grabbed Lionel's pants, begging him not to leave. "Let go." Lionel's cold eyes became fierce as he spat in disgust. He kicked Violet away and walked out of the house, chasing Chloe. A self-mocking sneer appeared on Violet's pale face. She stared at Lionel and felt the whole world was laughing at her. Besides her grandfather, the only person she had left was Lionel. Now that her grandfather was gone, was Lionel going to leave her too? There was so much that Violet had going on in her head at that moment. She didn't know what to feel or how to react. It was as if her whole world had just come crashing down in no time. What did she do to deserve this? No way, that couldn't happen. She had to explain it to him clearly. She couldn't lose him just like that, she thought. Violet quickly crawled up from the ground to chase after Lionel. Miranda saw that and fiercely grabbed her hair, not allowing her to move a step forward. "Sit there and think about what you've done. Such a disgrace. Where are you trying to run? Your parents passed away early, and now your grandfather is no more too. We are your parents now, and so you will listen to us." Saying that, she raised her hand viciously and wanted to slap her again. "You? My parents? Never." This time, Violet did not obediently let her hit her anymore. Her eyes were fierce and cold as she struggled with all her might and shook Miranda's hand. She couldn't care less about Miranda cursing behind her back and ran out barefoot. She wanted to prove to Lionel that she was innocent. She wanted to tell him about what had really happened. She did not want to lose him at any cost. But on the other hand, she also knew that she wasn't a virgin anymore and no longer had any hopes of marrying Lionel. Lionel always wanted to marry someone who was a virgin. She didn't have the heart to do that to him either. It was just that he was the last bit of warmth she had in this world. Even though they were meant to break up, she absolutely could not let him misunderstand her. "Lionel, you have to believe me. I really did not harm Violet. Her parents passed away very early, and I have always considered her my biological sister. How could I harm her?" Violet heard Chloe's voice nearby and instantly felt disgusted. She stopped walking and searched for the source of the pretentious voice. Behind a tree, she saw Lionel holding Chloe tightly in his arms. He felt so sorry for her as he squeezed the words out of his gritted teeth. "You are right. I was wrong about her. She only looks innocent. Who would have thought that she would be so vicious? Not to mention, she even tried to show you as a bad person." "Lionel, please don't say that. I'm so scared right now. I'm afraid Violet will blame me again as she hears this." "Don't be afraid. You're just too kind and gentle. That's why she's been bullying you all along." Lionel comforted her. He was the type of person who always treated people coldly and didn't like to laugh. But if he cared for someone, then he would become very gentle towards them. Chloe stayed in Lionel's arms for a while before opening her eyes, feeling the presence of someone nearby. When she saw Violet standing in front of her, she was stunned at first. Then her lips quirked up into a smirk, and she raised her eyebrows provocatively towards Violet. She opened her mouth to mumble the words, "Violet, I'm going to snatch all that you have." Violet's face was pale, and she looked like she was on the verge of collapsing. Seeing that, Chloe smiled and then tiptoed to kiss Lionel's mouth deliberately. You are the best. Did you mean it when you said you loved me? Do you still love Violet? Oh, come on. Don't you already know who I love now? In fact, I never loved her. I only love you and no one else. After saying that, he passionately held her face and kissed her. Raindrops fell on Violet's eyelashes. Her feather-like long eyelashes trembled and tears flowed down from her eyes. She only tasted bitterness as her heart broke. The man who was now hugging another woman and kissing her in the rain had once said that he would protect her for the rest of his life and love her for as long as he could breathe. Now that she realized his true character, she did not bother to care for such a man anymore. Violet wiped away her tears and turned around to walk home. As soon as she arrived, she saw Miranda standing in the hall with a fierce face. A suitcase was thrown towards her. You did something so immoral. No one in the Kingston family has ever done something like this. Our family has a reputation to maintain. We absolutely cannot keep you. Leave immediately. For now on, we have nothing to do with you. Violet was shocked. What? No, I'm not leaving. I'm also a part of this family, she shouted loudly. She was only in her 3rd year of university and had not even graduated. How could she survive alone? What would she even do? Not just that, but her grandfather was still at home, and she had not even bid him farewell properly. I'm not asking you. I'm ordering you to leave. Now! Are you leaving yourself, or should I get someone to drag you out? She said, her expressions as fierce as ever. You can't chase me away. Grandpa is still at home. I'm not leaving, said Violet as tears rolled down her cheeks. George, get someone to throw this damn woman out. George had no option but to abide by what she said. He did sympathize with Violet, but there was nothing he could do. The last thing he wanted was to get kicked out of his job. Violet, please leave for now, he said, with a rather solemn look on his face. Violet was forcefully pushed out of the house. She pulled George's arm and begged him to let her stay. I am not leaving. I want to see Grandpa one last time. George, take me to Grandpa, please. Violet, just listen to me. We don't have any other option. You need to leave for now, and I will inform you if something happens. Now go, he said, as he shook her hand away and shut the door close. Violet's tearful eyes were filled with unwillingness and reluctance. She could not even see her grandfather's face for one last time. If she had left now, she would never have had the chance to look at him again. Episode 3. The Conspiracy. Violet carried the suitcase and pretended to walk through the door, but she did not leave. Instead, she ran around the house sneakily, climbed the wall at the back, and secretly opened the window to enter the room. Initially, her plan was to hide in her own room and wait for the others to leave before sneaking into her grandfather's room to look at him one last time. Fortunately, there was no one on the 2nd floor. Violet rushed to her room silently. As she tiptoed by the study room door, she heard the sound of an argument. She saw that the door was slightly ajar, so she stopped and peeked in. She saw Charles and Aunt Miranda quarreling. Everything on the desk was swept to the floor. It looked like they were in a fierce argument. Uncle Charles roared, "That was my father! Why did you kill him?" Aunt Miranda snorted in disdain as she reported, "Huh, you are the one who asked me to drug him, and now you're blaming me? Are you for real?" "I just wanted him to never wake up, not let him die," Charles stated, furiously. "What's the difference between never waking up and dying? He might as well die instead of being a disabled old man. Besides, if he had been in such a vegetative state, how much do you think we would have had to spend on him every year?" Miranda argued. "You are a vicious woman. Charles replied. Charles, who the hell do you think you are? Miranda shouted. You are the one who proposed to kill your own father, and now you want to blame it all on me and act like a good person? She added furiously. Just what are they talking about? They killed Grandpa? How could that be? Violet trembled all over. She couldn't believe what she had heard. She wished she could rush in and die together with these two murderers who killed her grandfather. Violet, why are you standing over there? Didn't Mom chase you away already? Chloe stood on the stairs as she looked at her angrily, her voice loud enough to let the people inside hear her. Violet panicked, and she immediately attempted to run out of the house. The room instantly became quiet as everyone understood what had just happened, before Charles suddenly slammed open the door of the study room and yelled, "Catch her! Don't let her run away!" "No! Let go of me!" Violet yelled. A few girls quickly ran over from all sides, surrounded her, and held her down. Violet struggled with all her might, but she was no match for this whole group. She looked at Uncle Charles and Aunt Miranda, who were walking towards her. Violet laughed wildly, her eyes red as she snorted in disbelief and hatred. "You bunch of beasts! You are not human! My grandfather was your biological father! How could you kill him? I am going to sue you and put you beasts in prison!" Miranda looked at her mockingly and once again slapped her, saying, "Violet must be crazy. Tape her mouth shut and lock her in the storeroom. Don't let her run out and hurt anyone." Violet knew that she was done for at this point. She had unexpectedly found out their secret, and because of it, there was no way they would let her live. She sat in the corner of the storeroom, curled up. Her body was trembling with both anger and fear as tears rolled down her cheeks. Grandpa. She missed her grandpa so much. Well, on the bright side, this was good too. She could just die and see her grandfather so that she could apologize to him. Not long after, the door of the room was gently pushed open. George walked in, softly tore the tape off her mouth, untied the rope on her hands and feet, and shushed her while whispering in a low voice. "Miss, you have to listen to me. You can't beat them now. So quickly, leave before anything horrible happens. Your life is more important than anything else." Violet looked at George in surprise and disbelief. She was touched. "No, if you let me go, they won't spare you." "Don't worry, they won't dare do anything to me. Now leave, quickly. Mr. Kingston was kind to me when he was alive, but I am just the house help, so I can't help you much. I am so sorry, Madame Violet," he replied. Violet was moved and her eyes turned red as she muttered sadly, "George, thank you. Go. For now there is no one downstairs, and Mr. Charles and Miss Miranda are busy with the funeral. It would be too late if you delay any longer," he suggested. Violet finally listened to George and left. She climbed up the wall and picked up the suitcase. When she was leaving, she felt as if there was something stopping her. Her whole body started to tremble as she looked at her grandfather's bedroom window. There was a flash of pain and determination in her sad eyes. "Grandfather, I swear that I will come back to take revenge for you. For now, I can't stay here," she thought. Violet dragged her suitcase emotionlessly as she walked on the streets in a daze. Her mind was full of thoughts on how to take revenge for what they had done to her grandfather. She did not have any evidence now. If she just went to the police and accused them baselessly, she was afraid that she would only alert the enemy and make things worse. She had no one to rely on, nor was she a match for ruthless people like Uncle Charles and Aunt Miranda. As she walked, a black car sped over and honked its horn at her. Violet was caught off guard and regained her consciousness quickly. Fortunately, the car didn't hit her, but a sudden impulse took over and she fell to the ground, rolling to the side. "Sir, we seem to have hit someone," the driver exclaimed while glancing anxiously at the back seat of the car. Violet was still in shock, and for a moment, she blurred out. The car had come so close to hitting her, to the point that it even seemed to graze against her shirt. Her luggage was open and the clothes were scattered all over the ground. Not to mention, it had just rained and the ground was very dirty. She quickly got up and hurried to put her clothes and things back into the luggage. She couldn't help but think, how embarrassing. Logan Alexander was sitting in the back seat of the car, drunk and having indulged himself for the night. He had a severe headache and was resting, with his eyes closed, when suddenly his body lunged forward due to an emergency brake. No matter how good the luxury car was, his body swayed a few times due to the momentum. In an instant, his eyebrows gathered together as he gritted his teeth. His cold eyes opened and his black pupils were filled with displeasure as he glanced at the woman who was crawling on the ground at the moment. Ask her if she's all right. If she's all right, then drive. His cold voice did not have a trace of sympathy or warmth. He was not the type of man who was willing to waste time on women, especially on such a small matter. Thinking of this, his mood worsened and he felt his rage rising. Last night, he had been uncontrollably drunk and accidentally slept with a stranger woman. To make matters worse, it had been his first time. How could his first time be with some random woman? What was even more detestable was that the woman actually ran away when he was sleeping. Had he caught her, he would have definitely cut her up into 1,000 pieces. When he looked at the woman who was bending over and picking up her clothes in a sorry state, his gaze became distant. Her shirt was soaked by the rain, and it pressed up against her waist, portraying her outline. Her slender waist could be seen clearly. Damn it! His mind suddenly wandered out to that woman from last night. He couldn't see anything since it was dark, but that woman's waist felt so soft and thin that if he closed his hands and clenched her waist, it was as if her waist was going to break. Suddenly, a familiar tension sprung up from his lower abdomen. He had only recalled the events from last night, but had already reacted to it. Yes, Mr. Logan. The driver grabbed the handlebars of the car and was just about to get out of the car to check, but his phone rang loudly. Sir, it's the special assistant, Corey Blackmore's call. Logan took the phone and answered. What is it? Corey sounded surprised. Mr. Logan, I have found the identity of the woman from last night. It's Violet Kingston. Kingston? Logan narrowed his eyes. His aura suddenly turned cold, chilling the atmosphere in the car. The Kingstons were a well-known family in Los Angeles, but it was nothing compared to the wealthy and successful Alexander family. Ha! A woman from the mere Kingston family dared to provoke him? Now he was curious what they were capable of. He chuckled in his thoughts. Drive! We will immediately go to the Kingstons. Logan withdrew his gaze, which was set upon the woman outside. His handsome face was tense, and his voice carried a trace of urgency, showing his impatience. Mr. Logan, what about the woman outside the car? The driver asks. Just give her some money and let her go to the hospital by herself. This all happened because she was not careful when she walked, so it was her fault. She could even be a blackmailer. Whatever the reason is, I won't be fooled by these tricks. I have seen many such people, Logan responded, coldly. As he spoke, he took out his wallet and grabbed some cash. A stack of money was thrown at Violet's back, ruthlessly. It flew and scattered in the air like rain. Oh God. The driver broke out in a cold sweat. He could understand that Logan had a superiority complex since his status was high, but he was just a driver. He was scared that others might scorn upon him if he acted so arrogant. Seeing his expression, the driver did not dare to delay any longer. As soon as he stepped on the accelerator of the luxury car, it roared and flew out smoothly. Its polished wheels splashed water to the sides of the street. Violet was fiddling with her luggage after just having put the clothes in, when some cash suddenly fell in front of her eyes. She was stunned. What was going on? She quickly turned her head and instantly saw more cash smashing toward her face. Before she could clearly see what was going on, she was splashed with water again. She looked at the car that was speeding away and then glanced at the water on her chest. She finally understood what was going on. She stomped her feet in anger and shouted at the car with rage. Hey you! Who do you think you are? I am not done with you yet. Stop the car. How come her fate was so miserable? Even strangers she didn't know wanted to bully her. Violet was so angry that she had nowhere to vent, so she harshly stomped at the money on the ground in rage. Since the car was long gone, no matter how much she cursed, it was all for nothing. She could only acknowledge her bad luck as she stood there, fuming. She angrily picked up the money, picked up the suitcase, and prepared to leave. She had just bent down when her vision turned dark in an instant. Her body fell forward uncontrollably as her consciousness became hazy. Before her eyes were completely closed, she fell into a warm embrace. Before the complete blackout, she heard a familiar voice drift into her ears. "Violet, I'm sorry. I came late." Episode 4. A cute little girl. 4 years later. At Los Angeles International Airport, a petite young girl was standing. She was wearing a large sun hat that covered her face, carrying a school bag on her back. She stood in the corridor and looked around as if she was waiting for someone. Her big eyes glistened as tears filled her eyes. They were already full to the brim. She looked like a pitiful little girl. "Why aren't you back yet?" she thought sadly as she looked for her brother. "Hi, sweetheart. Are you waiting for someone? Do you want me to accompany you? I'll give you a candy." A middle-aged man with a beard and dirty hands asked in a vulgar manner. He looked at Amy from head to toe with a malicious gaze. Amy immediately stopped crying and looked at the man vigilantly, holding her school bag tightly with her small hands. She had seen this kind of scene on TV before. Men like this were all bad people. She definitely would not talk to them, nor would she go anywhere with them. Okay. Her brother had once told her that when faced with this kind of situation, she must not panic and should act intelligently. She intentionally put on a happy look in order to avoid alerting the man, but her big eyes were secretly looking around for a target to seek help from. Suddenly, there was a slight commotion at the airport exit. A group of men in black suits and sunglasses followed a man out from the airport. The man at the front walked out, wearing a gray suit. He had a slender body and long legs. His expression was cold, and he looked very young. However, there was an unfathomable calmness in his expression, as if he was looking at everyone condescendingly. Amy's big eyes were like 2 copper bells as she interestingly watched him by the side. Why did this man look so similar to her brother? Inexplicably, she felt that this man was a good person, just like her brother. As soon as she thought of it, Amy ran towards the man, without hesitation. As she ran, she opened her arms wide and shouted, "Daddy, you're finally here! I've been waiting for you for a long time." Logan Alexander had been on a business trip and had been in meetings constantly for a week. He had always been energetic and vigorous, but this time he also felt a little tired. He was about to press his hands between his eyebrows when he saw a chubby little girl running towards him from the corner of his eyes. She was running with all her might, opening her chubby little hands wide to hug him. "Daddy? Is she calling me daddy? Could it be that there was a woman who secretly gave birth to my child?" The ridiculous thought came to his head in an instant. Logan thought about all his relationships since he was 16 years old, and definitely got an answer. It was impossible for him to have such a big daughter. "Daddy, I'm Amy. I want a hug." Amy saw that the man was standing straight without any reaction. She suddenly understood that he did not understand her signal for help. She was very anxious as she waited for him to pick her up. After a while of no reaction, she used all her strength and tiptoed her small shoes on the ground to pull Logan's hand. Her big eyes filled with anticipation as she blinked at him innocently. Logan lowered his eyes and looked at the delicate little girl in front of him. In that instant, his heart somehow felt as if it was bumped by something. It strangely became somewhat soft, seeing her cute expression. However, this thought only lasted a second before he thought of something and his expression suddenly became gloomy. Those swindlers really dared to use any kind of method to deceive people. They realized that it was useless to trick him with a woman, so this time, they actually used a child. Did he give the impression of the kind of man who liked to raise children for others? Thus, his gentle expression once again became cold and distant. He said in a stern voice, "I'm not your father. Don't call me that." Logan was only a young man, but he had an imposing manner akin to that of a mighty businessman. Even the merchants in the business world would be intimidated when they saw his frown. Amy was only a little girl who was not yet familiar with the affairs of the world. Her body shook in fear. She was dumbfounded. Was this man a fool? Didn't he notice that she was asking him for help? How come this man, who looked like my intelligent brother, couldn't see through her? She didn't give up and tried again to blink her big eyes. Every time she acted cutely, everyone fell for her and let her do whatever she wanted. Logan raised his eyebrows and stared at her before saying, "Acting cute is useless. Go away." Amy felt very sad upon hearing this. She had always been successful in the past, but today she met this strange person who did not have the slightest bit of affection for children. Not knowing what to do, she discreetly turned her head to glance behind her and found that the same creepy-looking man who was following her was still standing there, looking at her, foolishly. He even smiled creepily and waved at her to come over. Damn it! How come my brother has not come yet? Amy thought. She could only continue acting like she was accompanied by someone to stall time until her brother arrived. Soon after, Amy started sobbing pitifully. Her tears were like small beads with broken strings falling down like rain. The more she cried, the sadder she actually became. Daddy, how come you don't want me anymore? Mommy and I have suffered so much. You can't do this. Hearing such a cute little girl say this to their boss, the bodyguards behind Logan were all dumbfounded. What was going on? When did the boss have such a big daughter? How come they didn't know? Which woman would have the fortune to give birth to such a cute little girl of their boss? Surprisingly, she even seemed to resemble him so much. The bodyguard's reaction and the girl's loud crying immediately drew the crowd's attention. Look at that. This person thinks that he's amazing just because he's handsome and rich. He didn't even try to acknowledge such a cute little daughter and even claimed that he wasn't her father. How pathetic can one be? How pitiful is the little girl? People murmured. A young woman finally could not stand it anymore. She walked out of the crowd and gently pulled Amy to her side and comforted her, at the same time angrily complaining while targeting Logan. "Hi, sweetie, come. Your father doesn't want you. You tell me your mommy's phone number, and I'll help you call." Amy immediately stopped crying and held the woman's hand. Her behavior immediately changed to an obedient baby and shouted sweetly, "Oh my God, thank you. You're such a nice person. Now I am not sad anymore. Since Daddy doesn't want me, I don't want him either. But can you stay here with me and wait for my mommy with me?" Upon hearing this, the woman's heart melted and she hurriedly responded, "Of course, I can wait here with you. It doesn't matter how long I have to wait." After the woman finished speaking, she glared at Logan in disdain. "Such a scumbag," the woman remarked. As soon as he came out, she was infatuated with his look for a moment. Witnessing his true character somehow, her impression of him instantly dropped to zero. Logan sneered in disbelief at the situation in front of him. Since he was born, he had never been the one to be at a disadvantage. He might have been the one to bully others since kindergarten, but there had never been any reasons for others to bully him. Initially, he wanted to just ignore the entire situation. However, when he realized that Amy got rid of him in a second for another person, he suddenly became very unhappy. He inexplicably felt betrayed by Amy's actions. He felt uncomfortable thinking about how she could throw herself into someone else's arms like that. After a while, Logan smirked. He grabbed Amy and snatched her from the woman's hands and hugged her. His voice softened as he said, "Baby, it's my fault. I didn't mean to leave you behind. I was just kidding. We used to play like this, didn't we? Let's go find mommy now, okay?" That was his master plan. He wanted to indirectly tell the woman that no one can use this child to trick him. Episode 5. Looking for Dad.
Your attention, please.
Amy initially just wanted to find someone to protect her. After what had happened, her impression of Logan was not good. Naturally, she would not let him hug her when there was already another person willing to accompany her. She wildly struggled in Logan's arms while shouting, "Let me down! I'll wait for that woman there, not with you." After Logan snatched Amy from that woman's hands, she wasn't happy. She saw that Amy wanted to be with her instead of Logan. She wanted to take her from him. His eyes turned cold, and he signaled the bodyguard behind him, instructing him to drag her out. In a flash, the woman was held by the two bodyguards, both from the left and the right arm, and was forcefully taken away. No one around reacted as they watched the bodyguards drag the woman out fiercely. Soon after, the crowd dispersed. Amy watched everyone leave in the blink of an eye. Seeing that the wretched-looking man had also disappeared, she felt relieved. Since the problem had already been solved, she wanted Logan to put her down. "Quickly, let me down, right now! I don't know who you are." Logan's handsome face turned cold hearing this. He spoke up in an intimidating, deep voice. "What did you say?" "Repeat it." Amy wanted to retreat, seeing the man's terrifying expression, but she still dared to repeat. "I don't know you. You are a bad person. You bully me. You're yelling at me. My mommy doesn't shout at me. Yet you dare to yell at me. I want to find mommy. I won't stay with you anymore." Logan was both dumbfounded and speechless at the little girl's outburst towards him. He did not know whether to laugh or cry as he watched her walk away angrily. Was he just scolded by this little girl? "Sir," his assistant, Corey, came up to him and informed him, "Sir, actually, it seemed like an atrocious man was pestering her a while back. The little girl was probably afraid and guessed that you must be powerful, so she deliberately pretended to be your daughter, but in fact was asking for your help." Logan raised his eyebrows at this information. He was caught off guard by this sudden event and had forgotten to observe his surroundings. Also, since these were the bodyguard's matters, he did not bother to worry about his surroundings either. Was it really that? He suddenly felt a little pity and regret for not being able to do anything for her. Besides, it was not bad for such a cute little girl to call him daddy. Go ahead and take a look. Follow her all the way. Don't let her meet bad people again," Logan instructed firmly, strangely having a desire to protect her. "Oh, yes, of course," Corey complied, but he couldn't help giving Logan a complicated look secretly. When did the CEO become so affectionate, he thought. Not long after, Corey came back in frustration. "Sir, I was following her. Then as I took a turn, the little girl just disappeared. I think her mother was around the corner and she went with her." Feeling that his assistant was incompetent, Logan frowned unhappily. He felt a sense of nervousness as well. What if the little girl encountered bad people again? "You couldn't even follow a little girl. Are you of any use?" he scolded. Corey had a hard time explaining to Logan what had happened. He had really just turned and the little girl disappeared without a trace. What could he do? Logan and his men left after a while of searching for the girl.
Your attention,
Seeing them
please.
leave, two small heads poked out from the corner of the door, and one whispered, "The weird man is gone. Let's come out."
Thank you.
Adam looked at his twin sister and suddenly felt like banging his head in the wall. Could anybody explain to him why such a smart and invincible genius like himself had such a silly little sister? "Amy, why are you running around?" Adam scolded as his tone became louder. His handsome little eyebrows were lightly knitted as he looked at his little sister angrily. His expression was serious, and he emitted the aura of a parent scolding his child. "Adam, keep your voice down. I can easily hear you." Amy pointed at her ears and whispered impatiently. Adam tapped his finger lightly on Amy's forehead and continued helplessly. "I've told you many times that you can't run away. Mommy's going to be worried to death when she realizes that you have run away from England to here." "Speaking of Mommy," Amy immediately held her brother's hand and asked, "Adam, did you call Aunt Haley? When will she come to pick us up?" Once the twins arrived at the airport, Haley St. James received a call from Adam telling her that they had arrived in Los Angeles. Hearing her two favorite kids coming over, she was so excited that she immediately drove to the airport. Haley was Violet's closest friend and also happened to be the children's godmother. She looked for the twins when she arrived at the airport and immediately saw them, who seemed to be bickering at the corner. She ran to them. "Adam, Amy, I missed you guys so much, but why didn't you guys call me beforehand if you guys were coming to Los Angeles?" Haley would travel to England very often to accompany them whenever she had time. In the past, when these two little ones were born, Noah Smith was on a business trip outside, so she was the only one who accompanied Violet. She was also the first person to hug the kids when they were born. Amy opened her arms and threw herself into Haley's arms. She gave her a sweet kiss before blabbering in a cute voice, "Aunt Haley, I also miss you very much." "Aunt Haley," Adam called out obediently. He looked at Amy, who was hanging on Haley's neck, before immediately scoffing with extreme disdain. "You are so fat that I can't even carry you anymore. Do you know yourself at all?" Adam mocked Amy. "I am not fat. I just look stronger." "You're mean, Adam. I don't like you." Amy pouted unhappily and slowly climbed down from Haley's arms before glaring at her twin brother. Haley watched the two siblings bickering and could not help but laugh. She looked around and asked, "Where's your mommy? She's become so irresponsible. How could she leave the two of you here and just disappear? How dangerous is this?" "Mommy," they spoke softly in unison. Getting reminded of her mommy, Amy instantly felt guilty and lowered her head. She took a few steps forward and leaned her small body against Haley. Suddenly, Haley realized something. She looked down and questioned in shock. "Could it be that your mommy didn't come with you guys? Did you run away from home? Adam, tell me right now." Adam gave Amy another look of dissatisfaction that said, "Coward! If you have the guts to do something wrong, then you should also have the guts to admit it." After thinking for a while, Adam found an appropriate excuse and uttered nonchalantly, "Mommy is in England. Only the two of us came here to look for you because we missed you." Hearing what her brothers said, Amy nonetheless gave Adam a thumbs up in her heart. She nodded her head. "Yes, yes." Of course, Haley didn't fall for their tricks. She narrowed her eyes and retorted firmly, "Do you think I believe you? Tell me the truth now. I just came back from England a week ago after meeting you guys. Why would you miss me? If you don't tell me the truth, I'll call your mommy right now and take you home right away." Being confronted directly, Amy could not hide anything in her heart anymore. She quickly held Haley's hand and anxiously admitted, "Don't, Aunt Haley, you can't tell Mommy. We actually came here to look for Daddy." "Daddy? Do you know who that jerk is?" Haley asked in surprise. Amy was shocked as she covered Haley's mouth and said, "Don't call Daddy that. Who knows? Daddy must have had some difficulties urgently leaving Mommy and us. Our Mommy is so pretty. I am so cute. Adam is so smart. No father could be stupid enough to not want us. There must have been some misunderstanding. Haley was stunned hearing this child's simple thinking. If everyone was as honest as what Amy had in her mind, how beautiful the world would be. However, this situation was entirely different. Even their mother had no idea who their father was. Adam was clearly more sensible than Amy, and he reprimanded his little sister. Amy, are you that stupid? Have you forgotten that Mommy doesn't allow us to mention Daddy? Haley sighed, heavily looking at them. These two pitiful children. Haley's heart ached thinking about it. She could not bear to scold them anymore. So she hugged one in each hand and comforted them while rubbing their backs. All right, let's not mention your daddy anymore. It's a relief that you guys are safe. Let's go back first, since you are already here. I'll bring you guys something lovely to eat tonight.
Thank you.
As soon as Amy heard that there would be food tonight, she immediately forgot about the idea of finding her father, and her eyes lit up like fireflies before she shouted cheerfully, "Okay!" Adam was speechless at his little sister's sudden mood change and disdainfully insulted. Amy, you are such an idiot." Amy couldn't help retorting, "Adam, you are so mean. How will you find a wife for yourself?" Hearing the familiar argument between these adorable twins, Haley's heavy heart immediately became relieved. She smiled softly as she carried them to the parking lot. They didn't notice that not far away from them, a row of neatly arranged luxury cars was parked by the side. Episode 6. Returning after 4 years. Logan was sitting in the back seat of the car that stood right in the middle. He did not order the driver to drive for a long time. Even he did not know what he was waiting for as he looked around the parking lot from time to time. Suddenly, a little girl's figure was reflected in his ink-black pupils. Logan immediately took off his sunglasses and intently stared at the 3 people walking toward the car he was in. He saw that the little girl was being carried by a woman as she laughed happily. Could that woman be her mommy? She was beautiful. She had a curvy body and was wearing a fitted gray professional suit. She had beautiful features and was dressed well too. However, Logan didn't feel anything in his heart. He didn't feel like he knew her at all and was somewhat disappointed. He only told the driver, "Let's go." Then the black cars left, one by one. He had no remembrance of this woman at all. He was sure that she had nothing to do with him, let alone having a kid with her. Was he crazy? A while back, he thought that the little girl might be his child, and he didn't even have any knowledge about it. Logan couldn't help thinking about the little girl all the way. He had seen many women with this kind of beauty. There was nothing special about her. Perhaps the unique beauty and the intelligence of the little girl were inherited from her father. The eye-catching motorcade left the parking garage in a grandiose manner, leaving the trespassers staring at them with curiosity. Meanwhile, in England, when Violet received Haley's message saying that her 2 little babies had run to Los Angeles alone and were already in her hands, she was about to lose her mind. She wanted to immediately grab those 2 brats and beat them up. What they did this time was really far out of the line and unreasonable. They dared to secretly run away from home and travel all that distance. Alone? She didn't dare delay any longer. After quickly packing up her bags, she hurried back to the country. It had been 4 years since she stepped into this land that she had escaped from. There was a warm feeling in Violet's heart that surged repeatedly. She looked at the familiar buildings and tears filled her eyes. "Grandpa," she stuttered emotionally. Ever since her grandfather had passed away, she hadn't had the chance to come back to pay her respects yet. It had been 4 years, but Uncle Charles's people had never given up on looking for her. It was Noah Smith who brought her to England in order to ensure her safety. If it wasn't for the 2 little babies in her stomach, she wouldn't have cared about her own life and would have avenged her grandfather's death a long time ago. But now, she only wanted to live a good life with her 2 cute kids. 4 years ago, when she fainted by the road out of nowhere, it was Noah who appeared in time, picked her up, and took her away. He told her that the sudden death of her grandfather wasn't that simple. It was Uncle Charles and Aunt Miranda who had been taken over by greed and killed them for the Kingston family's shares. Nevertheless, Noah's words just confirmed the conversation she overheard at the doors of the study. Her grandfather had long since felt the bad premonition since he noticed that the behavior and attitudes of his son and daughter-in-law were not right. So he secretly wrote a will in advance and legally signed all 50% of the Kingston Group's shares to her name. Not only did her grandfather take safety measures, but he was also aware of what kind of danger this would bring her. He knew that she was not a match for Uncle Charles and his wife, so her grandfather had called and instructed Noah to take her overseas. When she became strong, she could return to her country and take back what belonged to her. During that period, she was in pain every day, blaming herself for how she was useless and how she couldn't protect her grandfather. Her mind was full of hatred and her mental health grew worse. Then, one day, she found out that she was pregnant and her life started to change. She finally began to have hope again. In the beginning, she was emotionless and was determined to give up on this child of unknown origin. Noah was also very shocked, but he respected her decision and brought her to the hospital for a checkup. But the moment she heard the child's heartbeat, she hesitated and sobbed in emotional distress. Her parents had passed away when she was very young. It was her grandfather who took her under his care and took it upon himself to raise her. Now that her grandfather had left her as well, she no longer had any family in this world. Only she knew how much she longed for a place that she could call home. Later, she decided that the child was hers and had nothing to do with the man that night. She had made her mind up to give birth to the child, but little did she know that she was carrying twins. Adam and Amy were the only treasures in her heart. Without them, she would have no reason to live. Violet had just gotten off the plane and she was very anxious to see her children. To her surprise, there was a huge crowd blocking her way at the exit. There was a group of reporters and photographers with cameras at the exit. They looked like they were waiting for someone. Suddenly, she saw that a group of people ran towards her, and in a second, they all surrounded her. It seemed like a famous celebrity had just arrived at the airport. Who was it? Such a huge crowd was waiting for them. She tiptoed to look over the crowd to see who it was, but she was only a little above 5 feet tall after all. Apart from seeing the back of the people's heads, she could not see anything else. It didn't matter anyway, since Violet was not a fan. She only wanted to see her children. She struggled to somehow get out of the crowd. After she somehow managed to reach the security checkpoint, she found that the hall was also filled with people. They were holding pictures and slogans in their hands. Most of them chanted loudly, "Welcome back, goddess. We love you. Look here, please, look over here." Violet glanced at these screaming fans and shook her head while thinking, young people these days, they're crazy. When she finally managed to arrive at the tunnel entrance, she inadvertently turned her head and glanced at the photos that the fans raised up. She turned back around to keep walking when she suddenly recognized who it was. She snapped her head back to look again and was instantly stunned. She froze on the spot. How was she here? Coincidentally, the celebrity was being escorted out of the exit by her bodyguards and her assistants. She was taking off her sunglasses and enthusiastically reaching out to greet her fans with a smile on her face. Her exquisite makeup, sweet smile, elegant temperament, everything was flawless. It really was Elizabeth Kingston. Elizabeth was Chloe's biological sister. On that day of her grandfather's death, Elizabeth was filming a television series elsewhere and could not make it back home in time. When she left Los Angeles, she recalled that Elizabeth was only an unknown actress. In just 4 years, she had become so big that everyone was cheering for her. She was the youngest Hollywood superstar, and her popularity reached overseas, too. The Kingston Group's business had expanded from domestic to overseas, and its market value had increased manifold. Not to mention, Uncle Charles and Aunt Miranda were now able to hold their positions in LA's business district. There had been rumors about Elizabeth that all of the fame she had accumulated was due to her strong financial backing. Suddenly, Elizabeth glanced towards her unexpectedly. Violet didn't know what to do, so she hurriedly turned her head and walked towards the underground garage. She thought that she should have planned things out before returning. Sooner or later, the Kingston family would confront her. She didn't want them to find out yet. In Haley's apartment, Violet glared at the 2 disobedient children while they hid behind Haley. She was so furious that her hands were shaking. She thought that if she didn't teach them a lesson this time, she would fail as a mother. She took a step forward, angrily. However, before she could do anything, Amy ran up to her and clung to her dress. She tightly grabbed the lower hem of her clothes and started apologizing. "Mommy, I'm so sorry. I was wrong." Violet was truly mad this time. At such a young age, they had dared to run away from home. What would they do in the future if something were to happen to them? What would she even do? She would have no reason to live then, she thought. "Oh, really? Now you realize how wrong you were? Will you ever do something like this again?" she questioned furiously. Violet turned to Adam now and started telling him off too. Haley lost her patience. She shouted loudly at Violet. "Have you lost your mind? He is just a child. How can you yell at him like that?" She saw Adam's face. He looked heartbroken. Amy started crying too, witnessing her brother in pain. She cried even more miserably. She had never seen her mommy so fierce like this ever before. Episode 7. The Purpose of Her Return. While crying for a while, Amy wanted to apologize to her mommy. She ran to her, stretched out her hands, and tried to pull Violet's arm. She spoke while sobbing. "Mommy, I want a hug." She also admitted sadly, "Mommy, don't yell at Adam anymore. I was the one who asked him to bring me here, to look for Aunt Haley. It was all my fault." Violet looked down at her daughter, who was crying incessantly. Suddenly, she also became emotional. She hugged Amy and began to cry too. Of course, she was more hurt than anyone else. Throughout, she felt sad and blamed herself for what had happened. It was because she was busy working all the time. She did not take good care of her children, and so they ran away. "Now, promise me that you will always listen to me. If you do that, I won't get angry. Adam, you come too." She softly rubbed his cheek. "Are you okay?" Adam was very young, but he was aware that it was not easy for his mother to raise them both by herself. So when Amy told him that she wanted to come to Los Angeles to find her father, he had hesitated for a moment. But he loved his sister and could not tolerate her being sad. So he listened to whatever she said. It was painful, but he endured the pain and firmly shook his head. I'm okay. Violet's heart tightened. She couldn't help but think about how mature he was. I am so sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you like that. She hugged them both and apologized. The family of 3 hugged each other and cried. Seeing this warm yet heartbreaking scene, Haley's eyes gradually turned red, and she walked over to join in. Just like that, the 4 hugged each other and cried in the apartment. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Violet stroked Adam's hair and coaxed Amy to sleep before coming out of their bedroom. Haley sat next to Violet and asked, "What if those people find out about your return? They could hurt you and the children." Violet fondly looked at her best friend and shook her head. They probably don't know yet. Besides, I've thought about it. It's been many years since I've been hiding, and I've also told Noah now. It's time to come back and face my problems bravely. After all, these matters between me and them have to be settled one day. Noah is in touch with the people here. Don't worry, he's taken all the necessary measures that he needed to. Upon hearing this, Haley knew that things would get dangerous later. She sighed before talking cheerfully to liven up the gloomy atmosphere. Okay then, after all, this is the place where you grew up and are familiar with. I happen to have a spare room here. In the future, you can stay here with your kids. This way, I can take care of those 2 cute little brats along with you. Violet was very thankful and touched. She held Haley's hands and tears welled up in her eyes as she mumbled, "Whatever happened back then, I never wanted to hide any of it from you." Of course, I know that. You had your difficulties, and it is all in the past. Haley held Violet's hand back and comforted her. Speaking of kids, she thought of Amy and Adam's real purpose in coming to Los Angeles. Haley's eyes lit up as if she wanted to say something, but then she stopped herself. She could not decide if she should tell Violet about this. Forget it. What happened 4 years ago was already a scar in Violet's heart. The wound had not even scabbed yet. She would not mention these things to remind her of bad memories. Anyway, the Kingston family is no longer the Kingston family that it once was. I know you have been paying attention to their news overseas, but they have recently become more powerful, and it's not going to be easy to overthrow Uncle Charles now, Haley reminded her, worriedly. Violet sighed and bit her lips. I know. I even saw Elizabeth at the airport today. As she thought about it, a trace of bitterness flashed in her heart. The people from the Kingston family were getting stronger and stronger. On the other hand, she had been so busy taking care of her 2 children in these 4 years. She also had to earn to provide for them, and revenge had been far from her mind. Reminiscing about the life she imagined in the past, which was completely contrary to the life she had now, she couldn't help but think how ironic it was. Sometimes, thinking about it, life could be really unfair. The bad people are getting more and more successful while the victims are struggling to barely live. But I believe that the bad ones will get to pay for their deeds one day. They will definitely receive the karma they deserve, Haley rambled. Violet rubbed her hands and said in a grateful tone, Haley, you and Noah have helped me so much in these years. Realizing what Violet was going to say next, Haley waved her hand and interrupted. Oh, come on, Violet. We have been friends for more than 10 years. What's with those thanks? Your most important task right now is to find a job and gain a firm foothold in Los Angeles first. Okay, Violet smiled overwhelmingly. She was glad that she hadn't given up on her life so soon. That night, she started her job hunt. She updated her resume and posted it online. She did not have any outstanding experiences overseas since she couldn't focus on her life properly after giving birth. But it was all about doing something or nothing at all. She had once been the whole group's director's secretary, so maybe she would be given a chance, miraculously. Hall Group was one of the world's largest companies. It was famous all over the world for its rigorous recruitment. The fact that she knew the company president was something strong to put on her resume. However, it was not that easy to find a job. Most companies were not hiring at the time. On the 5th day of her job hunting, Haley brought her good news. She said enthusiastically, "Smith Group is recruiting assistants for the director of the company. Violet, you once worked as the secretary of that awesome company overseas, right? How about you try this one? Coincidentally, there is someone I know who is in some high position in the human resources department. If you are willing to give this a shot, I can directly hand over your resume to him. Also, let me tell you, Smith Group's welfare benefits are the best in the country. You must seize this opportunity." After saying that, Haley heavily patted Violet's shoulder, her face full of sincere support. Violet smiled as she hugged Haley. "Thank you. This means so much, Haley," she said in a grateful tone. "Stop being so nice. Just do your best." Haley was naturally a decisive person, and so she immediately sent Violet's resume to that friend. The next morning, Violet went shopping with Adam and Amy at the supermarket. She received a call from the Smith Group for an interview. The Smith Group was the largest domestic company by market value, covering all aspects of life, technology, real estate, hotels, luxury goods, minerals, ores, etc. It even acquired the largest domestic entertainment company 4 years ago and officially entered the entertainment market. It could be said that the Smith Group had its presence in all areas of the economy with beneficial returns. Such a big company had always been the focus of the competition between the top schools. In fact, Violet did not hold many expectations for this big of a chance either. Although she was admitted to one of the top universities, she had dropped out and escaped overseas before she could complete the last couple of years. However, since Haley was doing her best to help her, she did not want to disappoint her. No matter what, she had to work hard to not regret anything. Early the next morning, Violet put on some light makeup. She deliberately wore a white shirt and a considerable short black skirt suitable for the interview. She wanted to look her best. Violet wasn't a girl who was downright stunning, but the more one looked at her, the more beautiful she looked. She had small, oval-shaped, delicate facial features. She was still pure and did not lose charm and sweetness despite experiencing such maliciousness. After giving birth, her originally thin figure became full, which caused her chest to be plumped up and her buttocks to become even perkier. Haley looked at her and said, "Oh my God, when did your figure become so good? Look at you! You should dress up more often. How beautiful do you look?" Violet looked at Haley, not knowing whether to laugh or cry as she responded. "Oh, come on. I am already the mother of 2 children. Who am I going to impress now? I only want to dress comfortably." Haley did not agree as she grimaced and waved her index finger. No, you cannot think that way. Violet, you are still so young and beautiful. You will definitely find the man of your dreams someday." Speaking of love, Violet glanced at herself in the mirror and a trace of sadness flashed through her eyes. Could she still hope to get that kind of happiness in this lifetime? She did not reply to Haley's encouraging words, but faintly smiled and spoke, "All right, let's go. Otherwise, both of us are going to be late." Episode 8. the president of the Smith Group. The modern buildings that towered into the clouds were the landmark buildings of Los Angeles. Naturally, the Smith Group's building was one of them, with their headquarters office building located in the most prosperous city center. Violet submitted the documents to the Human Resources Department as she arrived and headed towards the waiting area. She wasn't late, but there was already a long queue in front of her. The basic requirement was that only women could be the director's assistant. So all the people queuing here were women of different ages. Out of boredom, Violet began to notice all the interviewees beside her. Most of them looked like models with pretty faces. They were all wearing figure-hugging clothes with high heels. It looked like they were ready to get the position by flaunting their bodies. While waiting alongside all these pretty women, Violet could not help but think of what Haley had said earlier. I heard that the current director, Logan Alexander, of Smith Group, is very handsome and has a powerful family background. Many women desire to be his future wife. This interview is a great way to get him to notice them. Violet, as a person, you have to be ambitious too. Look ahead. You might just be the lucky one. As she thought about it longer, Violet got even more nervous. Women in this era were just too strange. How could a man like him fall for a mother of two when there were so many other prettier women waiting for him? She thought she would rather be single than get into this rat race. Just as she silently cursed her fate out of boredom, a deep and surprising squeak suddenly came from behind her, followed by a loud commotion. Out of curiosity, Violet turned her head and saw a tall man in a dark suit walking toward her with a group of people who seemed to be working with him. Just as she saw him, she had to take a second look with her mouth agape. She was shocked beyond belief. Why did this man look so similar to her son, Adam? His perfect, handsome face resembled a Western sculptor's meticulous carving. He was nearly 1.9 meters tall and had long legs. His sturdy figure made him look very elegant. Suddenly, the man stopped and glanced at the crowd, expressionless, not to mention that his entire body emitted a superior and unbending, arrogant aura. His eagle eyes seemed as sharp as a divine sword, capable of killing people with one swoop. The crowd that had been acting obsessed with him suddenly didn't dare to breathe loudly in case of getting targeted. This person's aura was too terrifying. Corey Blackmore, who was standing behind Logan, walked forward with a polite smile on his face before he said in a loud voice, "The Smith Group is a place where talent is valued. As long as you work hard, you will be acknowledged. However, if you don't do well, just know that the consequences will be really bad. I hope everyone will remember this. I wish you all good luck." After that, he followed the director with the other men and walked away. It was only when they left that everyone in the room breathed a sigh of relief. After a direct warning like that from the Smith Group, they did not dare to be impudent. They cried out in hushed voices, "Was that the director? Oh my God, no way. Help me up, I'm going to faint. Oh my God, Logan Alexander is even more handsome than the photos on the internet. If I can work with such a handsome man every day, what more could I ask for?" one of the women exclaimed. "If I can't be his assistant, can I be his lover? Don't you think so?" another one added. Violet was pushed by the person beside her, causing her to recover from a shock before she blurted out unconsciously, "I don't think he's that good." Everyone gaped at her. "You are just pretending not to care, saying he's not handsome," one of the women scoffed. Then they started talking among each other, ignoring Violet entirely. The corner of her mouth twitched helplessly. She didn't know if she should laugh or cry. Didn't they understand that this kind of unruly man would not like ordinary people like them? Clearly, that man did not even look at them. However, Violet's eyes flashed and her lips suddenly raised as she planned something in her head. There were at least a few thousand interviewees here, with most of them having a common goal in mind. But there was only one assistant physician. It seemed that she had to use her brain to make herself stand out. Obviously, the man's words were a warning to everyone. She carried her bag to the bathroom and took out the exquisite-looking handkerchief that Haley had knitted for her. She quickly tied her hair into a ponytail. Wiping away the red lips, she raised her little finger to rub the eyeshadow off her eyes. She then evenly applied the eyeshadow on her finger to both sides of her cheekbones. Instantly, her white, porcelain-like, delicate skin became somewhat dark and heavy. Then, she wore a pair of rigid black-framed glasses. The girl in the mirror became stiff and serious, just like the headmistress in her middle school. Violet looked at herself in the mirror and curled her lips in satisfaction. Good job. She praised herself and went out. Violet did not panic when she saw the women who came out of the interview room, bawling with their faces covered. It was finally her turn. Violet pushed open the door and walked in confidently. She greeted politely and looked at Logan, who was sitting on the main seat, rubbing his eyebrows tiredly. He was obviously impatient and slightly absent-minded as well. Violet, you can begin introducing yourself, the interviewer asserted, as he saw Violet staring at the director. He shook his head and thought that she was another infatuated girl. Startled by the stern voice, Violet reacted and quickly looked away. She took a deep breath and began her introduction. When she mentioned that she had once been the secretary of the director in Hall Group, Logan's fingers paused, and he finally looked up at Violet. When he saw Violet's formal attire, his brown pupils narrowed, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. All the women who came here for the interview tried their best to please him. They all carefully dressed up, some with even over-revealing clothes. But her old-fashioned attire and ordinary appearance made her stand out. Logan curled his lips faintly. He had dealt with the president of Hall Group before. The man was famous for being difficult to deal with, but this woman actually worked as his secretary for more than a year? Interesting. He unfolded his legs, got up lazily from his seat, and walked towards Violet, step by step, his expression unreadable. A cold breath of mint that belonged solely to this man's body overwhelmed her senses. Violet subconsciously felt nervous, but she tried her best to calm down and remain unbothered. However, he had walked even closer to her and exceeded the safe distance usually maintained between strangers at this point. The speech that Violet had prepared earlier this week was stuck in her throat, and her mind went blank. What exactly did he want to do? Why was he moving so close to her? As the seconds ticked by, Violet couldn't help it anymore. She subconsciously took a step back and pulled away. At the same time, she looked at Logan vigilantly. Is there something wrong with my face? She asked in a quivering tone. Logan stared at Violet's dark yellow face with condescending eyes. Under the big frame of the glasses was a pair of big, panicked eyes. The hands that were placed beside her tightly clenched, as if they would reach out to push him away at any time. Seeing her clenched fists, A trace of displeasure flashed across his heart as he looked at her in contempt. She was such an ordinary-looking woman. Who would take advantage of her? Did she need to act so wary of him? He thought. Suddenly, a wicked idea came to his mind, and he wanted to tease her. Before Violet could react, he suddenly leaned forward, his lips nearly brushing her ear. "There's nothing wrong with it. Your face is just too plain," he said. A wave of hot air blew on her ear as she felt a strange electric current passing through her spine. "Don't come any closer!" Violet could not help but scream out of fright. Episode 9. Narcissistic Man. Violet screamed and took a few steps back towards the door, immediately moving away from him. Her back was pressed against the wall as she stared at him vigilantly. You couldn't even blame her reaction after what happened 4 years ago. She had an inexplicable lingering fear of men in her heart. Logan was instantly shocked by her reaction. Even the other interviewer in the room was somewhat stunned. Logically speaking, for a man like Logan, there was no woman who didn't get attracted to him. However, looking at the situation now, the woman in front of him seemed to be avoiding him, like a snake avoiding a scorpion. She was breathing heavily, and her large eyes under the frame stared at him, clearly rejecting him, unlike any other woman. Her hands were crossed in front of her chest tightly, as if she was guarding herself against a perverted man. An image flashed in Logan's mind. That of a frightened little rabbit waving its little claws randomly while showing its teeth. He had never encountered such a girl in his life. For a moment, he felt that it was new, and was amused for a while. His thin lips curled up, and he moved closer, step by step, intentionally teasing the little rabbit in front of him. He placed his long arm on the wall beside Violet's ear and forcefully took her in his arms by the waist with another hand. His face drew nearer to her ear, and Violet heard him mumble in a harsh tone, "Why are you so afraid of me? Wasn't this your goal, to get closer to me?" Violet tilted her head and avoided his hot breath. Her ear felt like it was burning with heat. She swallowed her saliva in fear and squeaked out, "I don't want to. I know myself well. Don't worry. I definitely don't have any such feelings for you." Violet couldn't help but curse Logan 100 times in her heart. This pervert! Demon! Such an arrogant man! Did he think all women will love him for his money? Logan was the type of man who fed on people's fear. It satisfied him. However, the smile on his face froze suddenly. From where he was looking, he could see the part below the woman's neck. Her skin was as white as milk. Her plump chest rose and fell along with her violent breathing. It was as tender as ever. A sharp contrast to the dark skin tone of her face. He unconsciously swallowed his saliva. Before anyone found out that something was wrong, he let her go, speaking in an arrogant tone. "It's good that you know your own limitations. Remember what you just said now." As soon as the force pressing her body was gone, Violet's legs went weak, and she almost fell down. She was still breathing fast, and only then did she realize that her tightly clenched palms were already covered in sweat. Logan's teasing attitude made her very angry. So what if he was the boss? Did that mean he could degrade the others like this? She no longer wanted to join such a company anymore either. She mustered up the courage to say, "Are you married?" Suddenly, the man's cold voice sounded from the seat in front of her, interrupting her words of wanting to leave. "Are you married?" he said again. Violet was momentarily stunned at the unexpected question. After thinking for a moment, she opened her mouth and said slowly, "I have 2 children that need to be raised. That's why I care about this job more than anyone else. I will hire her." Logan Alexander raised his finger and pointed towards Violet. He said only those words before he lazily got up from the chair and walked towards the door. In his opinion, having a child meant she had gotten married. Married women would never have useless ideas to swagger around in front of him. That's exactly what he wanted. The interviewer's eyes lit up at getting his approval. He hurriedly walked up to Violet and shook hands with her, talking in a good mood. "Violet, welcome to the Smith Group." Violet took a deep breath to calm herself down. She knew she had made the right bet after all. As long as she got the job, she could forget the humiliation she just felt. With a polite smile, she shook hands with the interviewer. "Thank you. Looking forward to working with you," she replied. He was already feeling thankful that she saved him from the director's wrath, so he said, "Mr. Logan has his eyes on you. Violet, your future will be very good. Your internship period is 2 months before you officially start working. At that time, your salary will be doubled. You have to work hard." The director's assistant was one of the most difficult positions to get in the company. Almost no assistant could hold on for a month. They either couldn't stand the president's indignation, or they found trouble on their own and did things they shouldn't have. He had to suffer once a month and choose a new secretary, a task that always proved notoriously difficult. But the woman in front of him looked different. Since she was also appointed by the director himself, he hoped he would be able to work well with her. Violet looked up at the interviewer's meaningful smile and touched her nose, feeling slightly embarrassed. Why did she feel like she was on a pirate ship? Getting such a high salary was no cakewalk. She thought there would be more rules in big corporations like this, but she did not expect things to go so smoothly. She came out of the room in somewhat of a good mood. According to the map given by the interviewer, Violet immediately went around the company and finally found the director's office. Violet knocked on the door, but there was no sound from the inside. Was there no one in the office? She thought. She leaned her ear against the door, hearing some noise inside. So there was someone in there. Violet frowned and raised her hand once again. This time, she used more force and knocked. "Come in," a man called out, his deep voice carrying a trace of displeasure. Taking a deep breath, Violet smiled as she opened the door and walked in. However, when she saw what was happening in the room, her smile instantly froze, and her eyes widened in shock. Sorry, I'm going out right now. I didn't see anything. It wasn't on purpose." Violet hurriedly retreated and closed the door with a thud. She had just witnessed a woman almost unclothed. She had charming eyes and attractive red lips. She was tightly hanging on to Logan Alexander. Who was she? Was it Elizabeth? Instantly, a thought came to her mind. Could Logan be the one backing Elizabeth financially? Oh my God. She seemed to have discovered something incredible. Elizabeth mustn't have seen her, right? She was wearing glasses and Elizabeth had her back to her. It had already been 4 years. There were barely any chances that she would recognize her. How bad was that? She walked in on her boss making love on her first day at work. Would she be fired before she even started working? Violet did not want to stay here, so she made an attempt to quietly walk away. As soon as she did so, the door behind her was forcefully pulled open with a slam. Logan's handsome face appeared in front of her. His eyes were cold, and he had a fierce expression as he stared at her, saying, "I told you to come in. Are you deaf?" Violet seemed confused. She didn't know what to say. What was he even doing? He began scolding her. She used the bangs on her forehead to cover most of her face before lowering her head and following Logan into his office. She quietly raised her eyes and glanced at Elizabeth from the corner of her eyes. She looked more mature now compared to 4 years back. Her pale face was rosy. Her long chestnut hair was curled into big natural waves and slanted aside her slim shoulder. She had a slender and exquisite figure. No wonder Logan liked her. She really did have the ability to make men fall for her. "I'm asking you a question. Are you also dumb? I told you to come in. Why did you run away?" Logan raised his eyebrows in anger. Violet was confused. Why was he this angry? Violet stood there obediently and deliberately lowered her voice to reply. "I'm sorry. I did not see anything." Elizabeth tightly clenched her fists, and her newly made nails dug into her flesh. When she finally had the chance to kiss him, this woman came in from nowhere. However, when she looked at Violet and her old-fashioned clothes, she heaved a sigh of relief as she smiled. This was the kind of woman she wanted as his assistant. So she gently comforted him. "Logan, this is your new assistant? Please, stop making things so difficult for her. After all, this is her first day at work. She probably doesn't know many rules yet." Logan's gaze finally softened a little. He glanced at Violet and lowered his tone. "Since someone is pleading on your behalf, I'll let it go. But be careful in the future." Violet clenched her fists tightly and bit her side cheeks discreetly. She really wanted to slap them. Were they angry at her for walking in at such a time? They should really just be thankful that she didn't tell the others. Violet said, "Yes, I will be more careful next time." She then walked out of the room, knowing that was the best thing to do. Episode 10. He was heartless. "Hey, go tell Corey to come here. Right now," Logan called out from behind. "Okay." Violet kept her head down and walked out very quietly. Logan narrowed his eyes and seemed confused. He had deliberately made things difficult for Violet, but she didn't resist at all. Why? Elizabeth pouted her red lips and walked over with an aggrieved look. She leaned on Logan's back seductively and said coquettishly, "Baby." Logan frowned unhappily at her behavior. He moved forward and avoided Elizabeth's touch before picking up a document on the table. It read, "What you did was unacceptable. I will forgive you since this was your first time crossing the line, but there will definitely not be a second time." Elizabeth did not expect that Logan would dodge just after she leaned on him. She almost fell upside down, feeling embarrassed. She felt very uneasy as she lifted herself back up. It had already been 4 years that she had been pretending to be a good girl. Every day she had to bear his strange temper. She had to speak to him softly, and also had to wear clothes of the color he liked. She made sure that he would not be upset by anything she said. She lived according to his liking, without being herself, just to please him. However, this man did not have a heart, nor did he have feelings for her. Even the most stone-hearted people have some feelings after a woman does so much for them. But her efforts had all gone to waste. She knew this man too well. If he said something, he would always keep his word, and would never allow anyone to resist him. Noticing his impatient expression, she knew that it was best if she left. Logan did not have any intention of telling her to stay either. Elizabeth stood up and said to him politely, "Baby, don't be angry about what happened just now. You know what I feel for you, right? So many people want to be with me, but I choose you. But since you don't like speaking about it, I won't mention it anymore." Logan still did not bother to say anything. He just lowered his head and focused on the documents in his hands. Elizabeth knew that he wanted her to leave. Even if she was not willing, she had to leave. She slowly walked to the door, but before leaving, she turned around and said flatteringly, "Baby, it's my birthday tomorrow. Last year you forgot. Can you get me a present this year?" All men like to be needed by women. Only then would they have a sense of masculinity and accomplishment. She knew this too well and wanted to please Logan. However, Logan did not even look up and nodded his head, replying in a low voice, "Okay." Witnessing this, Elizabeth felt even worse. She was not nice to him, and he didn't show any affection at all towards her. Her smile was already somewhat forced, but her tone was still gentle as she faked her happiness. "Okay. See you, baby. Goodbye." Corey's office was right next to the director's office. Violet called him over from the outside. They had just walked to the door when they almost bumped into Elizabeth, who had rushed out of the door. Violet hurriedly stepped back to avoid her. Then she lowered her head and made her way. "Sorry." Elizabeth was already fuming seeing her again, but the last thing that she wanted to do was create a scene at the office. She glared fiercely at Violet and walked away, stomping her high heels. Humph! Violet did not understand why Elizabeth was so angry at her like that. She stared at Elizabeth as she left. She did not know if it was her misconception, but she seemed to have seen her fuming red eyes. Maybe they had fought after she left. Maybe he was angry at her, Violet thought. Upon entering Logan's office, she saw him put his hands on the desk with a serious expression and said, "Corey, please show Violet around the office today, so she can familiarize herself with the company and the business." Violet felt happy seeing how indifferent he was. She secretly heaved a sigh of relief. What a relief that he wasn't going to fire her. Corey took Violet through the entire company building and finally returned to the office. He placed a book of Logan's taboos and preferences in front of her. "Violet, your job is to memorize everything in this book and then bring it back." He looked at the door, then suddenly lowered his voice and leaned in. He whispered into Violet's ear mysteriously, "Mr. Logan hates his subordinates making mistakes. If it's the first time, he will tolerate it. The second time, he will fire you directly." His face was solemn, which showed Violet what a big deal this was. Violet's eyes widened. She instinctively reached out and covered her neck. Was her life in danger here? "Corey, thank you for reminding me. I will definitely work hard." She held the book in her hands and headed out. Corey looked at Violet as she left in a panic. He remembered her vigilant and funny look when Logan teased her in the interview room. He couldn't help but laugh. This new assistant looked much more interesting than the others who came before her. When Violet got home, she told Haley and the two little babies that she had been recruited by Smith Group. Everyone was very happy, and Haley offered to celebrate for the night, but Violet refused. She knew that she had an entire book to memorize that night. If she didn't, Logan would fire her, and she did not want that. Haley looked infatuated hearing about Logan. "Oh my God, your boss sounds so cool and unique." Violet looked at her, rather shocked. "How is that cool? It's called having no humanity." "Violet, do you not like him as your boss? Do you know how many people would die for that kind of job? Make good use of what you have. You don't realize it yet, but do you know how helpful it can be if you are in his good books? Taking revenge later on will be so much easier for you," Haley suggested. "Thank you for your sincere advice." Violet completely ignored her words and went to the children's room, carrying the book with her. Looking at how vile and arrogant Logan was, she didn't even want to be anywhere near him, let alone take any favor from him. Not just that, but he was Elizabeth's boyfriend. All the more reason for her to just stay away. The next morning, Violet came to work with heavy eye bags. She had been up all night, reading the book that she was supposed to. Logan was very picky about almost everything. Violet had to make sure she handed him his fork and spoon right at mealtime. What a freak. Working under such a man would not be easy. He could drive her crazy. It was only later that she found out that the resignation was a big trap. Fortunately, she was just a worker. She could resign at any time she wanted. She prepared herself by putting her big glasses and wearing a perfect smile. She knocked on the door and said, "Sir, what do you need me to do?" In front of Logan, there was a huge pile of documents. The bangs on his forehead were lifted up, and his full forehead could be seen. That devilishly handsome face was completely revealed. Violet fell into a daze once again. From this angle, he looked even more like Adam. Logan's long and narrow phoenix eyes were slightly raised upwards, glancing at her. In a second, his long eyelashes lowered down again, while his slender fingers casually waved, and he flamboyantly signed on a paper. "Am I handsome?" he abruptly said. Violet jolted. "Yes, you are, but I'm sorry. I shouldn't have stared at you like that." Violet quickly replied. He was just teasing her, but she just admitted out of impulse. Violet was a little annoyed at herself. At this point, this narcissist was going to misunderstand her. Again. As expected, not a second later, the man stopped his hand movements as he said indifferently, "Violet, you are a smart girl. You should know why I hired you yesterday. You are already the mother of 2 children. There are no chances of anything happening between us. I'm warning you. Next time, don't be infatuated. You'd better save some energy for your work."